Think your old Canadian pennies are worthless? Think again. Some Elizabeth II 1-cent coins have sold for hundreds, even thousands, of dollars. Before you throw one away, watch this video until the end because you might already own one. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's uncover these valuable Canadian pennies together. In 1974, a small Canadian 1-cent coin passed through millions of hands without attracting much attention. It was used for everyday purchases, stored in jars, forgotten in drawers, or mixed in with other copper coins. But some pieces from that year preserved details, luster, and minting characteristics that can now attract the attention of specialized collectors. The first coin in this video is the 1974 Canadian 1-cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II. On the obverse, we see the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II facing right, surrounded by the inscription, Elizabeth II d.G. Regina. These words mean, Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, a traditional phrase used on many Canadian coins during her reign. On the reverse, we find one of the best-known designs in Canadian numismatics, two maple leaves attached to the same branch. Below them appear the word Canada, the date 1974, and the denomination 1 cent. The maple leaves are not simply decorative. They represent one of Canada's most important national symbols and give this small coin an instantly recognizable identity. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary coin. And in most cases, it is. Hundreds of millions of these cents were produced in 1974, so a circulated coin that is dark, scratched, or heavily worn usually has limited value. But the numismatic market is not based only on how many coins were made. It also depends on how many survived in exceptional condition and how many show genuine minting errors. This coin was struck in bronze, an alloy made mostly of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc. Its standard weight is approximately 3.24 grams, its diameter is 19.05 millimeters, its thickness is around 1.65 millimeters, and its edge is plain. These measurements are important because they allow you to compare a suspicious coin with a normal example. Weight should be one of the first details you check. A normal 1974 Canadian cent should be close to 3.24 grams. If a coin weighs clearly less, noticeably more, or appears unusually thick, it may be a sign that something different happened during production. However, a weight difference is not automatic proof of a rare coin. Wear, corrosion, dirt buildup, or post-mint damage can slightly affect the mass. That is why a precise digital scale is useful for spotting a possibility, not confirming a treasure. The next step should always be checking the design, the edge, the color, and the overall shape of the coin. One of the first areas to inspect is the date 1974. Use a magnifying glass and look closely at whether the numbers appear sharp, complete, and properly aligned. Some collectors search for small abnormalities in the digits, especially around the number 4, where die marks, metal fills, or apparent doubling can sometimes appear. But be careful, a blurry shadow caused by wear is not a valuable variety. A genuine doubled die must look raised, clear, and repeatable. It happens when the design is transferred imperfectly onto the die before the coin is struck. By contrast, a flat, irregular, or sunken mark is usually circulation damage, wear, or a later alteration. The difference can be small, but in coin collecting, that difference matters greatly. You should also examine the letters in Canada and 1 cent. If any letter appears doubled, unusually thick, or strangely shaped, compare it with another normal 1974 cent. A real variety follows the same pattern in more than one area of the design. It does not appear as a single isolated spot. Another error that can turn a common coin into a much more interesting piece is an off-center strike. This happens when the metal blank is not properly placed between the dies. As a result, the image of the queen, the maple leaves, or the date can shift toward one side, leaving part of the coin blank. The most desirable off-center errors usually preserve a clear portion of the date. A coin with a strong shift but with 1974 still visible can be far more attractive to collectors. The date identifies the coin and confirms that the error belongs to that specific issue. Double strikes can also exist. This error happens when the coin receives a second strike after moving inside the press. On a 1 cent coin, the result may show two partial images of the queen, repeated letters, doubled maple leaves, or overlapping numbers. A genuine double strike should follow the pattern of the original design and show a coherent second impression. It should not be confused with later damage or random scratches. Die cracks are another feature worth checking. A die crack appears as a raised line on the coin because metal flows into a fracture that exists in the die. A cut is a larger raised area, usually close to the rim, caused by a broken section of the die. The rule is simple: a die error rises above the surface, an ordinary scratch is cut into the surface. It is also important to inspect the plane edge. If the edge appears irregular, unusually wide, expanded, or oddly shaped, it could be a broad strike or a coin damaged after circulation. A genuine broad strike happens when the collar that controls the coin's diameter fails during the strike. The metal expands evenly, causing the coin to become wider than normal. Condition can dramatically change the interest in a coin. A 1974 cent with heavy wear, dark spots, or aggressive cleaning usually has little appeal. But an uncirculated example with original reddish luster, sharp maple leaf details, and few contact marks can attract far more attention. Collectors often classify copper and bronze coins by color. A red coin retains most of its original red tone. A red-brown coin shows a mixture of red and brown. A brown coin has a darker, more aged appearance. In high grades, a well-preserved red cent can be much more desirable than one with oxidation or dull color. The value range of $35,250 to $105,300 would only make sense for a truly exceptional example: a coin with a certified major mint error, a dramatic double strike, a wrong planchet, a significant off-center strike, or an extraordinary piece in top condition. It does not apply to every 1974 Canadian cent found in an old coin box. Never clean a coin that looks different. Cleaning can remove original luster, create microscopic scratches, and greatly reduce value. Store it in a protective capsule, weigh it carefully, and take clear photographs of both sides. Because a tiny maple leaf struck in bronze may hide a detail that went unnoticed for decades. And now, the next coin may be even more surprising. Before you spend a 1979 Canadian penny, check the date and the maple leaves closely. A tiny doubling, an unusual rotation, or the wrong metal can completely change its story. The second coin in this video is the 1979 Canadian 1-cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II. To many people, it is simply an old copper coin that no longer circulates in Canada. But for collectors, the year 1979 can become interesting when a coin shows die varieties, genuine mint errors, or exceptional preservation with original luster that is difficult to find today. On the obverse, we see Queen Elizabeth II facing right. Around her portrait is the inscription, Elizabeth II d.G. Regina, a traditional phrase meaning, Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. This portrait is one of the most recognizable images used on Canadian coinage during that period. On the reverse, there are two maple leaves attached to a branch, with the word Canada above them, the date 1979 below, and the denomination 1 cent at the bottom. The design may look simple, but every letter, every vein in the maple leaves, and every digit in the date can reveal important clues about how the coin was produced. Now, one thing must be clear from the beginning: most 1979 Canadian pennies are not worth thousands of dollars. Hundreds of millions were made, and many circulated for years. A coin that is dark, worn, scratched, or cleaned will usually have little numismatic value. The difference appears only when a coin has a genuine variety, a major mint error, or extraordinary condition. The 1979 Canadian cent is made of bronze. Its composition is mostly copper, with small amounts of tin and zinc. Its standard weight is approximately 3.24 grams, its diameter is 19.05 millimeters, its thickness is around 1.52 millimeters, and its edge is plain. These specifications are important because they help identify a coin that may be outside normal production standards. A precise digital scale can be a very useful tool. If your coin weighs close to 3.24 grams, it is probably a standard example. But if it weighs noticeably less, much more, or feels thicker than usual, it should be inspected more carefully. Still, weight alone does not confirm a rare coin. Corrosion, wear, dirt buildup, or post-mint damage can also slightly alter a coin. One of the most interesting areas to inspect on this date is the 1979. Use a magnifying glass and look closely at the 7, the 9, and the spacing between the digits. Some coins may show visible doubling around parts of the date. In certain cases, the 79 may appear repeated or show a second raised line near the edges of the numbers. But this is where caution matters. Not every doubled-looking date is a valuable variety. Many coins show wear, die deterioration, or light reflections that can look like doubling. Genuine doubled die doubling should be sharp, raised, and repeatable. It should look like part of the original design, not a blurry shadow or flat mark caused by circulation. The maple leaves also deserve close inspection. Look for doubled lines, extra metal, small raised bumps, or unusual details around the leaf veins. On some coins, the die may show wear or small metal fills that change the appearance of the design. These signs can be interesting, but they should be compared with normal examples before deciding that a true variety exists. Another detail that can appear is a die crack. A die crack forms when the die begins to fracture from repeated use. During striking, metal fills that fracture and creates a raised line on the coin. Sometimes these lines extend from the rim into letters, numbers, or parts of the maple leaves. A cut is a stronger version of the same problem. It happens when part of the die breaks away, leaving a raised blob of metal, usually close to the rim. The most important rule is easy to remember: a die error rises above the surface, an ordinary scratch cuts into the surface. If a line is raised and looks like part of the original metal, it may be a mint-made feature. If it is sunken, it is probably later damage. Rotated die errors can also appear. On a normal Canadian coin, the obverse and reverse should line up correctly when the coin is turned from top to bottom. If the reverse appears clearly rotated, the piece may have a die rotation error. This kind of mistake can be attractive, especially when the rotation is strong and easy to see without special equipment. Off-center strikes are another important possibility. They happen when the blank metal disc is not properly centered between the dies. As a result, the queen's portrait, the maple leaves, or the date may shift toward one side, leaving part of the coin blank. The most desirable off-center errors usually preserve part of the date, because that allows collectors to identify the exact issue with certainty. Broad strikes can also occur. A broad strike happens when the collar, which controls the coin's diameter during striking, fails to work properly. The metal expands outward, making the coin wider than normal. On a 1979 Canadian cent, a genuine broad strike may show a broader, smoother edge with an even and natural appearance. It should not be confused with a coin that was flattened or damaged after leaving the mint. An even rarer possibility would be a coin struck on the wrong planchet. If a 1979 cent were struck on a blank intended for another denomination, it could have a very different weight, size, or color. The design might look compressed, incomplete, or too close to the edge. These coins need professional authentication because altered coins can also look unusual without being genuine mint errors. Condition is another major factor. Bronze cents are often classified by color. A red coin keeps most of its original bright reddish tone. A red-brown coin shows a mixture of red and brown. A brown coin has a darker, more aged appearance. In high grades, an uncirculated red example can be much more attractive than a common coin with spots or oxidation. The value range of $30,330 to $92,300 would only make sense for a truly exceptional example: a certified major mint error, a wrong planchet, a dramatic double strike, a major off-center strike, or an extraordinary high-grade coin with a recognized variety. It does not apply to every 1979 Canadian cent. Never clean a coin that looks unusual. Cleaning can remove original luster, create microscopic scratches, and reduce its value. Store it in a protective capsule, weigh it carefully, take clear photos of both sides, and compare the details with a normal example. Because a tiny copper coin with 2 maple leaves may hide a mint error that survived unnoticed for decades. And now, the next coin may be even more surprising. Most 1983 Canadian pennies were spent, forgotten, or thrown into jars. But one unusual strike, a wrong planchet, or a perfectly preserved red surface can turn this tiny coin into something collectors never ignore. The third and final coin in this video is the 1983 Canadian 1-cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II. It may be one of the smallest coins in a collection, but size does not decide rarity. A single cent can become highly desirable when it carries a major mint error, an unusual die feature, or a condition so exceptional that very few examples have survived. On the obverse, Queen Elizabeth II faces right, surrounded by the inscription, Elizabeth II D.G. Regina. This Latin phrase means, Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. The portrait is part of the long-running Canadian coinage design used during that era, and it gives the coin an unmistakable connection to Canada's modern monetary history. The reverse features two maple leaves attached to a single branch. Above them is the word Canada, while below appears the date 1983 and the denomination 1 cent. The maple leaf design looks simple, but it is one of the most recognizable symbols in Canadian coinage. Every line in the leaves, every letter in Canada, and every digit in the date can offer clues about how the coin was made. Now, it is important to be realistic. Most 1983 Canadian cents are not worth thousands of dollars. Large numbers were produced for circulation, and a heavily worn, dark, scratched, or cleaned piece will usually have limited collector value. The value range of $24,540 to $82,660 would only make sense for a truly extraordinary example with a certified major error, rare production anomaly, or exceptional preservation. The standard 1983 Canadian cent was struck in bronze. It is made mostly of copper, with small amounts of tin and zinc. Its normal weight is approximately 3.24 grams, its diameter is 19.05 millimeters, its thickness is around 1.52 millimeters, and its edge is plain. These specifications are extremely useful because they help collectors identify coins that may fall outside normal mint standards. The first tool to use is a precise digital scale. A normal example should weigh close to 3.24 grams. If your coin is noticeably lighter, heavier, thicker, or smaller than expected, it deserves a closer inspection. But weight alone does not prove rarity. Corrosion, heavy wear, dirt buildup, or damage after leaving the mint can also affect a coin's appearance and mass. That is why you should always compare the suspected coin with a regular 1983 cent. Look at the color, the edge, the diameter, the sharpness of the design, and the overall shape. A genuine mint error usually shows multiple signs that something happened during production. A damaged coin often looks irregular in a way that does not match the original minting process. One place to inspect carefully is the date 1983. Use a magnifying glass and look for unusual doubling in the digits. A true double die variety may show a second raised image around parts of the numbers, especially along the edges. This is created before the coin is struck, when the design on the die is transferred incorrectly. However, not every doubled-looking number is a real doubled die. Light reflections, worn dies, circulation damage, and machine doubling can make a date appear doubled. Genuine double die doubling should look sharp, raised, and repeatable. It should be part of the original design, not a flat shadow or a blurred edge. You should also examine the word Canada and the maple leaves. Look for repeated outlines, extra metal, raised lines, or unusual shapes around the leaf veins. Sometimes a die develops small imperfections that create interesting features. These may include die cracks, die chips, or metal fills. A die crack appears as a raised line because metal flows into a fracture in the die during striking. A cut is a more dramatic die error. It occurs when part of the die breaks away, creating a raised blob of metal, usually near the rim. The easiest way to remember the difference is this: mint-made die errors rise above the coin's surface, while scratches, gouges, and damage from circulation are usually cut into the surface. Off-center strikes are another major error to watch for. This happens when the blank bronze planchet is not properly centered between the dies. The queen's portrait, the maple leaves, or the date may appear shifted toward one side, leaving a blank section of metal on another side. The best off-center errors usually preserve part of the date, because that makes the coin easier to identify and more appealing to collectors. A dramatic off-center 1983 cent with a visible date can be far more interesting than a minor shift. The stronger the misalignment, the more obvious the minting mistake becomes. Still, the coin must show that the error happened during striking, not after the coin was bent or damaged. Another possibility is a broadstrike. This happens when the collar, the part that controls the coin's diameter during striking, fails to hold the planchet correctly. The metal can spread outward, making the coin wider than normal. A genuine broadstrike often has a smooth, expanded edge and a natural, even shape. It should not look flattened by tools or squeezed after circulation. Rotated die errors can also be found. On a normal Canadian coin, the front and reverse should line up properly when the coin is turned from top to bottom. If the maple leaf reverse appears noticeably rotated, the coin may have a rotated die error. A strong rotation is usually more attractive than a very small one. One of the rarest possibilities would be a wrong planchet error. This occurs when a coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination or made from the wrong metal. Such a coin may have a different weight, size, color, or thickness. The design may look compressed, incomplete, or too close to the edge. These pieces require professional authentication because altered coins can also appear strange without being genuine mint errors. Condition is equally important. Bronze coins are often classified by color. A red coin retains most of its original bright red luster. A red-brown coin has a mix of red and brown. A brown coin is darker and more aged. In high grades, an uncirculated red example can be much more desirable than a common brown coin with dull surfaces. Never clean a coin that looks unusual. Cleaning can remove original luster, create tiny scratches, and reduce its collector value. Store the coin in a protective holder, weigh it carefully, photograph both sides, and compare it with a normal example. And with that, we reach the end of the video. Before you dismiss a tiny Canadian penny, inspect the date, the maple leaves, the edge, and the weight, because a coin worth 1 cent may carry a mint-made secret worth far more.